10 years ago, I was still known as TK-308, although that's not the case anymore. To be honest, I've nearly forgotten the name my parents gave me, but I remember them and how it all started. My father was an engineer on the Javik, one of the Vento-class Star Destroyers during the Clone Wars, and he took great pride in his post. The man would pay for a round at his favorite cantina for his friends and colleagues whenever he managed to get even a slight percentage increase in the propulsion system. Of course, he was probably just finding an excuse to spend time with friends. As the war went on, less drinks were shared. As for my mother, she was one of the navigation coordinators on the same ship. She wouldn't say it out loud, but she was the best on the bridge. Saved the ship once when someone set coordinates that nearly rammed us headfirst into an asteroid field. I don't think I've ever seen her look so red from all the praise. They met on Coruscant before the war started, and after 2 years, they married. Soon enough, I was born, but I barely remember life on the surface. Most of my childhood was spent on an orbital station where my parents used to work, before the war. 19 BBY, the year the war ended and when the Empire rose up. I was 13 at the time, but I won't pretend to know what was happening. It all started overnight, as one could say. Chancellor Palpatine had won the Republic to convert into a galactic empire, with him now known as Emperor. And the Jedi were traitors, and were to be hunted down and killed on sight. When the ships were being recalled and crew reassigned, my mother was given a promotion and named head coordinator. However, this meant she and my father were going to be separated even further than a few levels of the ship, and I was finally old enough to join the academy to enlist as part of the new Imperial Army. It was hard for us, but we knew we'll always have each other. Although, fate would say otherwise for us. Despite the war being won, there were still enemies, factions that refused to die, and my mother's Star Destroyer was ambushed by one and obliterated in the middle of nowhere space. My father was never the same after that report. He'd hide it, but I think he hated her promotion. If she was still just another coordinator, she would still be alive, on the same ship as him. He drank himself to death before I graduated from the academy. While friends and other students aspired to become officers, pilots, or even speak about their goals of becoming a Moth, I was set on being a soldier, a Stormtrooper. I had a few friends that were clone troopers back on the Javik, and I always looked up to them for being able to plunge themselves headfirst into combat like they did. Hell, I remember daydreaming about meeting the legendary 501st. So once graduation came, the next day my armor was fitted and I was tasked with my first post as TK-634. It wasn't anything glamorous, patrol over a few backwater planets, but I had my orders, and I was committed to them. As the years went by, I slowly made my way up in the operating numbers, and with just the right post, I might have become a sergeant, maybe even squad leader, but I was fine as a grunt. After my parents died, all I really had to keep me going was my duty to the Empire. And if I had to stay as a low-rank trooper, so be it, so long as I did my part. I had a few interesting times in my years as an Imperial, a few battles here and there, some nights with troopers I would consider as friends, even met up with a few I knew from the academy. I was even once aboard the Executor, Lord Vader's Star Destroyer. However, I never directly served under him. Barely saw him in close proximity either, but just being aboard that ship made me feel like I was being rewarded for my service. Although, there was one thing that always brought such anger within me. The Rebel Alliance. Bunch of scum. Something we all refer to them as. Humans and Xenos, fighting against the Empire for whatever reason they could use it as an excuse. Some claiming we wanted to be free from oppression, others saying our peace was a prison over the galaxy. Why couldn't they see the bigger picture? It didn't matter. We did our best to put the Alliance down, and every time we had them on the run, they hit us where it hurt the most. One of the most notorious losses in the war. The first Death Star. Looking back, I could see why many in the galaxy called the Empire evil. Back then, and sometimes even now, I believe it was to be used as more of a symbol of the Empire's rule. Alderaan was an example, and had it not been for the Rebel Alliance, it might never have ever been used again. Over 250,000 loyal Imperials died that day, and I was one of the lucky bastards who only had to hear about it. I think I knew a few of them as well. The following years we chased the rebels like the dogs they were, and it felt as though we were so close, regardless of their growing allies, to finally put an end to the war. But not only did they once again destroy a Death Star, but our Emperor along with it. There were those who stepped up to take control of the disastrous remains of the Empire, sure, of course. But with the rebels victorious, there was a rebirth in the Republic, and any remnants of the Empire were beginning to be seen as factions of an evil regime, to be sought after and brought to what they called justice. I shamed myself. I ran. Ran as far as I could until I realized I was laying my head on a bar counter in some pisshole of a cantina, my cheek and hair absorbing whatever swill was on the counter. My eyes glazed over as I was staring at the wall ahead of me. How many drinks did I have? How long was I even in that place for? There was only one thought that came to my mind that snapped myself out of it. My father. I never called him a coward or a fool for how he died, but I will not allow myself to die the same way. I am a soldier. I can only die one way, with a blaster in my hand, and it better be overheated from firing every shot I could at the enemy. I was able to crawl my way out of there and into a corner in some alley. Good. I need this. Make peace with just how low I have fallen, so in the morning, when my head will be cracked open and throbbing in pain, I can stand back up, and for the first time in my life, find a new goal to follow. Something that will ensure that I will always be on the battlefield. I will always have a blaster in my grip. It didn't come right away, but eventually I discovered what it was I could become, where I won't be hunted down like a dog for where my loyalties were during the war, and where I could use those skills to the fullest. A mercenary, a hired gun, even sometimes a bounty hunter. This is what I will become. This is the goal that I have set for myself. And 10 years later, with my armor upgraded and given a few new attachments, as well as a bit of flair to my shoulder piece, I have worked my way through guilds and gossip to become a sought-after individual for my skills and service instead of my years as an Imperial. The Loyalist Merc, they call me, with the Imperial flag hanging from my shoulder and my E11 blaster in my hand. I'm ready to find a true soldier's death from behind the lenses of my old helmet.